So he's about half in the bag, calls this old lady, gets pulled over for a DUI, tries to get out of the DUI and goes, if I got something for you. And he friggin' starts telling the story.
He snitches over a DUI.
What's up, guys? This episode is brought to you by Lab Canna, our new studio sponsor. Lab Canna is focused on doing the right things the right way. High-quality lab-tested hemp-derived products with real emphasis on transparency and consistency. Everything that they put out is backed by data, so you actually know what you're getting every time. What sets them apart from the rest is their attention to detail. From sourcing and testing the final product, it's all built around people who care about quality and trust and, all those great things. We're proud to have Lab Canna sponsoring the studio and helping us keep this platform growing. Make sure you go check out their location here on Gallatin Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Check out their socials and all that good stuff. Thanks a lot, guys.
Today with us we have Joey Mundy, ex-DEA agent, ex-TBI agent, law enforcement extraordinaire. He's got all the stories. He's going to tell us a little bit about Tennessee cannabis history today. He was on ERAD, which was part of eradication, is pretty much what it's short for, which was the federal eradication program. And so he's got lots of stories about that. And he's also going to share with us his stories from the Tennessee podcast. So enjoy. Also, this is completely unscripted. Joey hasn't been told what questions he's going to be asked. This is all straight from Joey, the best he can remember. And now, Joey Mundy.
So let me know when we're filming.
Perfect timing, Joey. So Joey, how did you? I mean, you were a young boy from East Tennessee. What part? What?
No, middle. Sumner County.
Sumner County. You went to UT.
Nope.
You went to
Belmont.
Belmont. Really?
Except at UT, but I was in love with my high school sweetheart, and we couldn't do she was still in high school and I was going to be leaving. And so you know about close. UT, man, it's party school.
So you stayed close.
Yep, stayed home.
Same thing happened to me. So from Belmont to TBI?
Directly. See, I graduated.
Criminal justice, I imagine?
Yeah, I graduated in May of '84, and Mr. Carson, Arzo Carson, the director at the time, I was hired September 1st. I was either 21 or 22. At that time, the youngest agent ever hired.
Wow. So but what happened before you got a badge? Were you out there doing stuff before you got a badge too?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, that's part of the reason I wanted to do what I did. At the time, you got to think, like in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of stuff on the street.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of pressure, peer pressure during that time, that what you're supposed to do and not do. And
oh yeah, we had the whole Nancy Reagan. That started in like '83.
No, that was before. This was before Nancy Reagan, I hate to say. I'm older than dirt, but...
towards the end of the '70s, everybody was getting away from street drugs a little bit.
So the pressure to fit in with the crowd, part of it was smoking dope or doing coke or mushrooms or mescaline or whatever it was. And I felt a lot of the peer pressure, and I knew that kind of drove me to the law enforcement side. Is like, look, kids should not having to be feeling this type of pressure in our society at such a young age. So I kind of went to the other side. Now look, I still have plenty of friends that smoke weed. I never judged them. I smoked weed early in life. DEA fully knew about that when they hired me. So did TBI.
FBI doesn't mind it these days, so.
Well, that was a different time. But, you know, hey, I never sold it. I only did it, you know, in social occasions. And I think the big thing for everybody is you just tell the truth, which I always do. And I did then, and it wasn't an issue.
Yep.
Just wasn't.
So TBI, you got badged in, and what were you originally? What, you know, when you get knighted into the TBI, was your badge like investigative agent, special agent? It was special agent, but I was assigned to narcotics at the time. Narcotics Special Agent Mundy at 21 years old.
Or 22, I can't.
22 somewhere. I mean, what's the difference? You are not a full-grown man.
Yeah, 10-foot tall and bulletproof.
Yeah.
And they give you a gun.
Yeah,
You don't get no better than that.
Big muscles, frontal lobe not finished. Ready to go. And so, some of the first? So you got through into narcotics. What was some of the first stuff you did out of, like, because you had to go through a training, right, as a TBI agent?
You did, and I did. Only I was a little different. I had some really, really good training officers, and I've taught hundreds of classes through the years, narcotics classes, and I can honestly say I never worked with a better group of men than I did those first years at TBI, ever.
They were that good.
All over the world I worked with law enforcement, but at that time there was, until the day I retired, I never worked with a better group of guys. Former Navy SEALs, former U.S. attorneys, later in their careers. I mean, they were great human beings. They were great teachers. So when I say it was a little different, I was working undercover, still going to school out there at the airport in Donaldson. Which
they're like, yes, this young cat.
No, they didn't know, because that was a huge no-no. Nobody knew that I was doing that. So I was buying dope all during school.
Why?
Because I was getting trained, and we had just a brand new operation up on the plateau, and my senior partner, we were out buying dope at the time.
Toting pistols,
Everything.
buying dope, not fully trained, and you never got shot in the process?
No, and at that time I'd never been shot at. But
you weren't getting into dope fights and people fighting and.
Well, I wouldn't say that now. There may have been some, but there was none ever reported.
I would imagine, you know, luckily I don't try to get into fights, but it wouldn't be fun to get into a fight with a meth head. I imagine they're like,
well,
it's like
no,
Blitzkrieg attack or something.
It wasn't meth back then. So I can tell you exactly where I was at and exactly what I bought the first time undercover. I was in Cumberland County. We had a couple of snitches, and when I say snitches, cooperators, stools, they're called many things. And
we call them snitches.
There's different levels.
We call them snitches, Joe, you're correct.
There's different levels of that.
Yes, there is.
And so anyway, it was off Plateau Road in Cumberland County. I'm not going to give you the defendant's name out of respect to their families. They've had a hard life over the years. But I bought a pound of weed and a quart of moonshine. Is what I bought.
Oh, those are good old boys.
And we were sitting in the car, and he wanted the boy I was buying from wanted to snort a moonshine, and I can remember my dad always telling me, son, you got to be careful drinking moonshine, because some people make them out of radiators as poison. make you go blind or it'll kill you. So you got to be really careful with what kind of moonshine you drink. So I wasn't drinking no moonshine about the first 3 or 4 times it was passed. I wanted to see if somebody else fell out and did the chicken on
Went blind all of a sudden.
Yeah. So when I figured out nobody was getting hurt by this, I'm like, hand me that jar. Well, needless to say, that jar never made it back to the crime lab. Just the pound of weed made it back. But that was my first buy ever as law enforcement. That one right there.
First buy in, and he was a quart of moonshine up.
I was sold at that point.
He said, "This."
I can't believe I get paid for this.
Yeah, right. And I get a little side treat, and I get dessert. Was it just regular moonshine? Just
Yeah.
straight up, uncut? Uncut. Oof.
Yeah.
That stuff is fire breather. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, like Tennessee, we're such a rural state. And so we got law enforcement that's always going to be there, and you got outlaw that's always going to be there. So like, I bet that family that you're talking about, that's probably like an outlaw family in that area that they've been doing stuff like that for a long time, you know?
For years. I arrested his brother also,
Yeah.
who ultimately went to federal prison for bank robbery.
Sadly, it's often generational, and you know, there's poverty involved in other things. In rural parts of the state, there's not a lot of opportunities. So many people do moonshine and grow and do those things. So how in the heck did you get from TBI out there doing buys? What escalated in between the 22-year-old Joey out there doing buys to, you know, DEA Joey?
Well, in the state of Tennessee, the way the law reads, the only time TBI does not have permission to work in a county is with narcotics. Any other time, like a murder, a bank robbery, a rape, any other crimes,
They take over.
they have to be requested by the DA to work that county. Narcotics is not like that. Okay, a DA does not have to request, although they do oftentimes for good reason. Mm-hmm. Well, between the early days, and I was working in Nashville, up in Knoxville, East Tennessee, Cumberland County. Historically, West Tennessee didn't get a lot of attention. They just didn't.
Nobody flew around Jackson and all that fertile soil out there. Goodness.
Well, I'm just talking about
gracious.
narcotics agents being assigned to those areas.
Okay.
And so the DA started complaining out in West Tennessee. Arzo Carson was a former district attorney in Scott County, Upper East Tennessee, who ultimately became law partners at Baker Donaldson. He was law partners with Senator Howard Baker, and he decided that half of our class were going to go to West Tennessee. So arbitrarily, myself and several others just got sent west. Didn't know anybody, didn't have any contacts. Agents hadn't been in those counties. Look, West Tennessee needed those agents. They did. I'm not denying that. But I was one of the ones that got sent to West Tennessee. And I decided right then, look, if I'm going to live somewhere I don't want to live, I'm damn sure going to get paid for it. And I applied for the federal government. And at that time, Maxie had left narcotics, and Bernie Red, a retired DEA agent, became my boss, and Bernie recruited like 7 TBI narcotics agents. All but one left and went with DEA, and the one was Mark Anthony King, and he went with the FBI. In those days, the FBI did DEA backgrounds, and when they realized Mark had an application in both with DEA and FBI stopped the background with Mark and DEA and completed it with FBI, so Mark went with the FBI.
Wow. They said, no. We have you.
Yeah.
And so how old were you when you joined DEA?
Ooh. So I was 3 years with TBI. May of '87, I hired with DEA.
That's quick. So you were 25 in DEA already.
Yeah.
That is quick. Were you one of the youngest DEA
Oh, I
agents?
don't know that.
I would.
I don't know that.
How many people get there that quick?
Yeah, I don't look. There's plenty of talent in DEA at that time. Now, that's when. Now you're talking. That's when Ronald Reagan was president, and Miss Reagan was first lady, obviously. Meese was attorney general, and there was a huge push at that time to start hiring DEA agents. And that time, around that time, you know, the Colombian connection and all the coke that was flowing into South Florida started coming in to South Texas. So probably half my basic agent class in DEA went to Texas.
Wow. So so you went from doing moonshine and weed buys mainly, right? In East Tennessee. To getting shoved to Jackson. Is that where y'all were out of,
Yeah.
Jackson?
Yeah.
To taking a job with the DEA. And now all of a sudden, your life's, it's getting kind of wild, right?
The first time that I drove my wife and my first son, he was the only one born at the time, we drove into downtown Houston from I-59 into the downtown loop on a Friday afternoon. And I look over at my wife, she's crying. Of course, the baby Justin's been crying, I don't even know how long in the car. I look at her and I'm like, what the fuck have I done to us? Because I've never seen, that's the first big city I'd ever been to. And I'm like, oh my God.
Houston's, if you've never been to Houston, it's like LA, maybe bigger.
Oh, way bigger.
I mean,
way
it's
bigger
just
than
so
LA.
sprawling. I looked at the overhead and I did some Google mapping around, like how long does it take from get to here? And I was like, oh, that's big. But then when I got there, I was like,
Yeah, you don't realize it until you've been there.
Yeah,
so
you live in a little bitty area.
The
of
610
Houston.
loop around Houston, point to point, is 75 miles. So when we lived there, the Astrodome was on the south side. We lived on the northwest side, and it was 45 miles to the Astrodome, and never leave the city limits of Houston.
That's wild. It's so big.
It was big.
So in Houston, it was all cocaine.
No, there's cocaine, meth, a lot of weed. But U.S. Attorney's Office in Houston was not user-friendly, and they had cutoffs of what you could actually
And you mean like you had
prosecute.
You had to have evidence of them having enough of something.
Yeah, you'd like to have, to take it federal in Houston at that time, I believe, and I may be mistaken, I'm going from memory, it was like 3 tons of weed, they wouldn't even take it federal. Or it was 20 kilos of cocaine. And if you didn't have that, you're not getting it prosecuted federal. You had to go through state court. Wow. And so most of the time, unless it was a meth case, I never prosecuted a case in Houston. We'd always go to the Eastern District or the Southern District because you had much better prosecution.
Wow, were they just too busy?
I'm not making excuses for them. I don't know why. I just know they didn't do the cases.
I mean, I know these metropolitan areas, they don't, they can only do so much, and they're running on limited resources. Some of these offices are. They could probably use some tax dollars. So a little bit of everything in Houston, but you left Houston to come back to Nashville, and that's when you started doing some more of the fun stuff.
So the transition from TBI to DEA. I had been taken out of West Tennessee by Bernie and moved back to Chattanooga to my partner, Joe Copeland. The day I accepted a job with DEA, I was doing an undercover deal up on Sand Mountain. So it could be Sand Mountain, Georgia, it could be Sand Mountain, Alabama, it could be Sand Mountain, Tennessee. You're right up there. And I was doing a 2 kilo buy, a cocaine buy, and I'm in a bar. And back then we didn't have cell phones, right? You didn't have cell phones, you had pagers.
Pagers and pay phones and bar phones.
Yep. So I get a page. I'm in the middle of a deal with this guy. We're waiting on the load to get there for me to buy the 2 kilos. And I may get the scenario mixed up as to the time frame, but at some point a car drove behind the bar, and it was summertime. I mean, it was warm outside, so the back bar door was open. We saw the car drive, and I saw the guy driving the car. I saw the rear end of the car when he parked, heard the car door open, heard a piece of metal being moved around, heard the car door shut, and the car drive off. Guy I'm dealing with, is still in the bar with me. At some point, I get a page. Tell the guy sitting across the table from the bar with me, he goes, I'm like, hey man, I gotta take this call. I'm gonna go outside and use the payphone. I go walking outside. So as I'm leaving the bar, I'm on the CAL. The CAL set is like an electronic recording device that everybody outside's listening to me talk when I'm meeting with this guy. And I tell my partner, I said, hey man, this is DEA. They're fixing to offer me a job. It's 202 area code. I walk outside the bar, go to the payphone, dial the 202 area code, DEA headquarters, and the lady on the other end offers me a job. All this is recorded on TBI equipment. I accept the job with DEA on the payphone. Go back into the bar, we finish the deal, do the 2 kilos. Success, right?
Yeah.
Good day.
My partner wouldn't talk to me because I took a job with DEA.
And he heard you.
And he heard I've got the recording. I have the recording where I took the job with DEA.
He took that headset off as soon as he...
Can I insert it right here?
So I took the job. Now, fast forward to Houston. Fast forward to Houston, Texas. Me and my partner, God rest his soul, Jeff Britton, one of the finest human beings I've ever met, ended up being a DEA pilot. Incredible human being, person, great agent, just the finest of America, law enforcement, 100%.
Go down a plane?
He passed away with cancer, but he and I were doing a deal. We were trading. It was an undercover deal that we weren't the undercovers on. We just happened to be the case agents. We were trading 20 kilos of cocaine for about 1,800 pounds of weed. There was some other stuff involved in it. So we gave up the 1,800 pounds of weed.
Yeah, DEA will barter with you.
Well, obviously they didn't know we were DEA.
Right, I know.
So,
I think it's just funny to barter that amount anyways. It's like...
So we got the 20 keys. We gave up the 1,800 pounds.
What did you all bring to the deal?
20 kilos of cocaine.
Okay, and this other group,
I'm sorry. We were bringing the 1,800 pounds of weed.
Okay.
Colombians were bringing 20 kilos with some assurances over green card stuff. We received our 20 kilos. We released the 1,800 pounds of weed. But we released it and we were still doing surveillance, and they were going toward Houston Continental, which is H.W. Bush Airport now, I think. Bush. It used to be Intercontinental. Anyway, the airspace, you can't fly over that airspace and do surveillance. You just can't do it. Sent out word to all the bosses. It's like, hey man, we're fixing to lose control of this. We're not going to be able to follow them with a plane. Long story short, we lose the 1,800 pounds. Gone in the friggin' wind. Not good scenario.
Because this was out of y'all's evidence, I'd imagine, right? Y'all pulled that out of evidence somewhere?
No, you can't do that. No, you can't pull it out of evidence.
Where'd you get 1,800 pounds from?
It was actually seized down on the border, and we okayed it and took control of it. It never was in evidence.
Okay.
So it was in evidence, but it was not in a case
Right.
where evidence
Mattered.
mattered within a case in the federal government, right?
Right.
It was seized by the federal government. There was a case.
It was
against
DEA's.
So, anyway, you couldn't have drove a straight pin up my ass with a sledgehammer, dude. This is bad, right? This is really bad. So, we start looking for the 1,800 pounds. And we started looking really hard for the 1,800 pounds. I won't go into exactly what was going on, but at some point I got into a hotel room.
Use your imagination.
And there was a guy sitting there. Now look, as you well know, Clint, now I know everybody in our office by sight. Consider myself friends with all of them. Could I tell you their names correctly at any given time? Probably not.
No,
I'm horrible with names.
Same. I remember a face though, like it was my mama's.
I'll never forget a face. So this is like 4 years after I've left TBI and I'm in Houston, Texas. We're doing this deal. And I walk into a random hotel room after losing 1,800 pounds of weed. And I look at dude sitting on the bed. I'm like, I fucking know him. I walk outside. I tell the other agents out there, I'm like, look, dude, I know this guy. I don't know where from. I know this guy. Know him. Yeah, whatever. Get the fuck out of here. Bullshit.
But y'all, once y'all had found him, when y'all found him, was it because he had some of the 1,800 pounds?
Yeah, he had about 300 pounds in the trunk of his car, outside in the parking lot. We were still missing some.
But you've got.
Okay, let me say this right up front, so I'm not going to have everybody looking at me. We found all but about 100 pounds of that weed. So we found 1,700 and change of the 1,800 pounds.
That's pretty good.
There were some cars that got out on us that we did not see before we actually found who was doing this deal. Getting back to the guy in the motel room, everybody's saying, oh, you're full of shit. You don't know him. That's bullshit. That's crazy. You don't know him.
But your mind's just sitting there trying
I'm
to
like,
figure it out.
I know him. I'm telling you guys, I know him. Go in and look at his license. And on his license, it has Sand Mountain, Georgia.
No, it was his hometown.
It was the guy who delivered the 2 kilos of cocaine that drove by the window that day at the bar. I took the job for DEA.
Yep.
I walked back in the room. I'm like, you know who I am. You were at whatever bar on Sand Mountain. And he just lowered his head. And I knew we had him. And it was the guy from Sand Mountain, Georgia.
Did he end up catching anything for that too?
Oh, hell yeah, he went to federal prison over that deal. Absolutely.
He had 2 more years. He had 2 more years. 2 more years.
So he the short story, he recognized me too. I wasn't the only one recognizing people. He knew who I was.
That's crazy.
And I'd arrested him like 4 years earlier on the last deal I ever did with TBI.
That's crazy. So, but then you ended up back in, so let's talk, will you tell us a little bit more about ERAD? Tell us the full story of the Dynamite Day.
So, back when I was still with TBI, we did ERAD every year.
Which stands for?
Marijuana Eradication Program.
Yeah.
A lot of it was funded by the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Still is.
But I was TBI agent back then. We did a lot of seizures. And look, I'm an outdoors guy. I love hiking, love ATVing.
Tromping around
That's
the woods.
right down my alley, right?
Same.
And we seized a lot of dope back then. A lot of dope. But there was one occasion that that me and my partner, we were sitting on the tailgate of a truck. Day was over, pretty much it was over. And I mean, we would work from like 7 in the morning till 7 at night when it was getting too dark.
Ripping plants?
Yeah, pulling plants, cutting plants, finding plants. I mean, it was brutal days in the heat, humidity of Tennessee. Yeah. So we were sitting on the tailgate of a government truck, having our first beer of the day, and Mike Dover found a friggin' weed field. So
Which is a pilot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He flew helicopters, Vietnam vet, great human being. Best E-Rad guy I ever saw that could spot weed. He found a plot. He calls it out. Everybody comes up there. Me and Joe pull up. Well, look, we'd already cracked a beer. We're not going to go on any enforcement activity, right? And it's not that big. It's probably 20, 30 plants. No big deal. So we're kind of sitting on the tailgate of the truck. So ABC guys, they come charging up the mountain.
But they don't do that anymore, do they? ABC?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
So, but back then they were really involved.
Mm-hmm.
So all these gun-ho guys, they go charging up the mountain. Me and Joe winding down and having a beer.
Go get them, boys.
On the tailgate of the truck. And all of a sudden we heard a gunshot, and we're like, oh my God. So now we're trying to find our guns, and all of a sudden you hear the rampage coming off the mountain. Here comes all these ABC guys running back off the mountain. And we're like, what's going on? What's going on? Did y'all get shot at? Who's up there? Nobody was up there. Nobody got shot at. What happened was somebody had booby-trapped this field. And they went up there and charged the field so quick, nobody looked around, paid any attention to what was going on. Somebody grabbed a stalk of marijuana and ripped it out of the ground. And when they ripped it out of the ground, a blasting cap came out of the stick of dynamite that was buried in the ground and exploded outside the dynamite. So the whole field was rigged. So needless to say, we sat up all night on that field waiting for THP bomb squad to come out and get
Did you get the guy?
out there. No, there was nobody to get. Just in the middle of nowhere.
Did y'all set up cameras and try and come back for him?
No. Didn't do any of that.
You don't investigate further after something like that?
Well, it depends on the situation. Yeah, we
I
do,
figured
but
like
not
that
in that
one.
case.
I figure I'd set up some trail cameras. You try to blow me to smithereens. I mean, shit. You know.
It's personal now.
In my younger days, one of the things I did was similar to that, but I also knew that we had a booby trapping law in our state, and it's not just personal property, it's any property. And you know, booby trapping can consist of a lot of things, but holy crap, dynamite and blasting caps.
In Tennessee?
In Tennessee, what county? Was that east?
It was East Tennessee. Maybe Unicoi. I can't remember, dude. I really can't remember.
I feel like Tennessee's rowdy redneck outlaw zone ranges basically from the plateau area of Chattanooga, so you know, just a little bit northeast of Chattanooga, all the way up to like Lafayette, Red Boiling Springs, and then just east. Like every bit of that.
I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that.
Well, I mean, and that's why there was so much, but I mean, that's where I feel like, especially the places I've visited, they're pretty much all in that area that anybody's ever grown big fields or, you know,
but there's
big
the real reason for that is so rural.
Yeah,
it's
you
less
got-
populated.
Yep. You got, you know,
You got
two
at least-
deputies
Yeah,
in
you
an
got
entire county.
a lot less chance of your fields being seen. I mean, that's all geographical type stuff.
Yeah.
To me, I wouldn't look at it like a mindset of people and families and all that more so than I would. That's a geographic
better
thing.
opportunity.
100%.
Yeah. And that same thing, and that's why those same areas are known for moonshine, because both of those are camouflage activities that you want to operate under as much camouflage
Well,
as
then
possible.
you got to remember, back then, sugar was so high, you couldn't make money off moonshine anymore. you had to switch to weed. You're not making any money off shine anymore. Sugar got so high.
That's why.
That happened probably the late 70s, early 80s.
Really?
So it wasn't economically feasible. Now look, there's some connoisseur moonshiners.
Right.
They're going to do moonshine irregardless. They don't give two shits about how much sugar costs.
Right,
Yeah.
but you're
And
not
they're-
wrong. Like it did kind of fall off. It stopped.
And they're
happening.
never going to not do that. And they're never going to grow weed. There's that faction of
Yeah,
people.
that's the fringe, but the economic people.
The economic
People doing it
people's
for
like,
business. Yeah.
yeah, look, it's much cheaper to grow weed than it is to make shine.
Yeah, it's just, man, that's a different learning curve. You know, I feel like distillation is one thing. Growing a plant in the field that's tough to grow in the field when it gets rained on, man, it's just a lot of work. So you went, but y'all did everything. You were flying around in helicopters, doing ERAD, not
Oh
just
yeah,
on the
in
ground
Tennessee,
too, right?
Yeah.
So
I was never any good spotting weed from there, by the way.
did y'all use were you ever a part of when they used, I know some states used that FLIR system to identify on that specific wavelength?
No, that's bullshit.
No? Okay. I know Virginia did it a little bit. There was this whole write-up.
Nothing beats the human eye.
Just, man, I think, man, see, in another life, Clint would have been a really good law enforcement agent, man. I mean, there's a reason why the TBI has twice said to me, come on over to the dark side. The water's just fine. Well, tell me a little bit about, so we've done a little bit of journey through ERAD. I kind of want to circle back at the end of Pot Cave, but let's finish up the I would consider a pretty illustrious career in DEA. From there, so you went Houston.
Mm-hmm.
After Houston, did you go straight to Nashville?
No, South America. I went
South
to
America.
La Paz,
Yeah.
Bolivia.
You were in Bolivia, blowing up runways,
Yeah,
and that was
in Coca Labs.
in Coca Labs.
Back
Yeah.
during the Pablo Escobar days, we were chasing all his planes coming into Bolivia, going back to Colombia.
And at the same time, there was, so you were doing a lot on the ground, but you were in the air a lot too. But a lot of can you talk about the DEA pilots a little bit and just what they were doing? Or no? You can say no.
Which DEA? What?
Because I remember some story about the DEA pilots and stuff like that. And
Well, you got to go back to when I was in Houston. Okay, this wasn't happening once I went to South America. So it was kind of evolution of things. There was a time when DEA pilots working undercover would fly into Colombia
yes.
and take loads of cocaine back, and none of which ever hit the streets of America. None of which. It was so controlled. Fly loads back in, deliver them to crooks, whether it be New York, LA, Miami, wherever it was. Chicago, it didn't matter, wherever it was.
Just set up each of them.
Yes, and people would be taken off in those cities. So it's not like the cocaine ever hit American streets. It did not.
So,
I can assure you.
It's a very interesting concept. Is that the DEA, in order to get all these people, in order to get them, they had to have something, and that one thing that they needed was cocaine, and they literally knew where the sources were, would go down and buy it, and then use that full load of cocaine to take people across the U.S.
Well,
now.
the U.S. would not buy it in South America. The South American people, DEA pilots, would be working undercover and
they would
connect with the
just take
South
it from
American
them.
people. It's their loads. DEA was only transporting it. And then at the other end, in the U.S., we were taking off those loads all across the country. Those loads were not making it on the streets of America.
Right.
We had such control over all that. It was virtually, I never know of one instance. You know, when I talked about the whole
Not too-
1,800 pounds missing, That never happened,
There wasn't
to my knowledge.
2 Miller Lights or,
Nope, none of that.
jar of moonshine.
No, it's one thing to explain a little weed missing. It's another whole world to explain 20 kilos of cocaine
I
missing.
can only imagine.
So the Colombian government says, okay, once they found out about it, because they were heavily involved in all that.
Yeah,
during the
they were
time.
making.
They're like, no
Everybody's
more,
making
we're
money.
going to start shooting down the planes. We don't care if they're American government planes, we're going to shoot them down. So obviously, the bureaucrats in Washington said, well, we can't do this anymore. So DEA agents, that's worth their weight in gold, came up with a different plan. Okay, well, we're going to use snitches to fly in our loads, bring them to us. We'll still do the transport. We'll still make our arrests. And we're taking out whole friggin'.
Let's just, you know what, guys, you're right. Let's 3PL this. Let's put this in a third party's hands. Continue to do this.
So we did that once removed. We still did, and we were taking out whole huge sales throughout the country. Again, nothing was hitting the streets, nothing. It was so controlled. Literally hundreds of agents involved across the country. Well, then the Colombian government found out about that. Says, well, we're going to start shooting down your snitches' planes. So obviously we can't do that anymore. Can't be tied to that. This is during the Clinton administration. They did not think highly of all those maneuvers.
Yeah,
So-
especially if they're in with Pablo.
Well, no way am I saying that, dude. No way am I saying that.
Well, there's-
I
I mean, he
don't
paid off-
even believe that. I would not.
Well,
No,
he
I
paid
don't
off
even.
plenty of government officials.
In Colombia, not America.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
believe it.
No,
I don't
Colombia,
believe any of that.
Colombia, sure.
So they started saying, okay, we're going to start shooting down your snitch planes. So again, it's chess moves, right?
What's your move?
Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and
Yeah.
effect. So then some other DEA agents come up with the idea, well, we can't use our snitches anymore, but we can still use our snitches to recruit unwitting cooperators. So we used our snitches to recruit other pilots that thought everybody was crooks, to include us. And they started flying. They were well paid by the cartels, well paid. We used them many times. And I don't know of one of their planes that were shot down. I do know of one that crashed because that was one of our cases in Houston. We were refueling planes in the Florida Keys. We were bringing loads back into Houston, none of which, again, ever made it to American streets. It was too controlled. Look, we would have blown the whole case to take off those loads before
Yeah,
we would ever be responsible for that
This is
stuff.
post-Contra.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have anything to do with it.
I know you did.
And I still have strong thoughts on that, as many DEA agents have very strong thoughts on that.
I can only imagine.
But, so we did that for several years. There were historic cases all across the country made over those cases.
It's wild.
Those cases.
So
What? Yeah, knock. Next question is, what called you back from Bolivia besides your wife?
What's up, guys? This episode is brought to you by Lab Canna, our new studio sponsor. If you're serious about quality, Lab Canna is doing it right. Lab tested, dialed in, and built around transparency and consistency. No shortcuts, no guesswork, just solid products you can trust. We're hyped to have them backing the studio and what we're building here. Come hang out with us at their location in East Nashville and check out their sites and socials and hit those links in the bios. Love you guys. What's up, guys? This episode is brought to you by the Terp Chaser Club. For the people who actually care about terp profiles, flavor, and overall experience, this this is your lane. The Turf Chaser Club is built around quality and a deep appreciation for the craft side of this culture. If you're paying attention to what you're consuming, you already know the difference. Tap into the Turf Chaser Club, link in the bio, check out their Instagram, their website. We're big fans of theirs. They help us out, we help them out. It's all a big, beautiful ecosystem here. Thank you guys.
So, post-Bolivia, Nashville?
No. So when I was coming out of Bolivia, there wasn't an open in Nashville. There was an open in Memphis, which I hated West Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason I left.
You'd already been stuck out there once.
But look, coming back to the States, as long as I'm in the state of Tennessee, I was going to be happy. I chose to bring my kids back to the state of Tennessee to be raised with their mom and I and their grandparents, all four of them. And that's what I chose to do. And so there was an opportunity to come back to Memphis, and I came back to Memphis.
Plenty of work to be done out in Memphis.
There was a target-rich environment during
Yes.
that time.
Yes. Can you tell us just a little quick snippet about that? So there's a real famous, for the viewers, there's a real famous Memphis drug case or thing that happened out there, and it was a Colombian hit squad came to murder some Memphis people, right?
Yep.
Because they owed them money, something
Yep.
like that. But they got really lucky because Joey and others were actually listening to The Wire where they were talking about doing this hit on these people. And so law enforcement intervened, and it's a pretty wild story. Can you give us, tell us how that went down?
So ultimately, that case won the Attorney General of the United States Case of the Year, which is that's the highest
big
honor you could get in at least the Department of Justice. So me and my partner at the time, by the name of Harry Summers, he was coming back from Caracas, Venezuela, and I was coming back from Bolivia. We both happened to get Memphis. We knew each other by reputation only. I'd done some case with his partner. His partner and I were in basic agent school together. Jay Gregorius, who ultimately became a big boss, as did Harry. They were Harry was the special agent in charge over Atlanta. Jay was the special agent in charge over DEA training at one time. Great human beings. We had a crossover case where Jay needed weed. They were doing a flash up in Fort Lauderdale, I think. So Jay called me down in Houston and says, hey, go get us a load of weed. So me and my partner at the time, Jeff Britton, we went down to Brownsville at the border and got customs like, hey, we need some good weed. And so they were bringing in tractor trailer loads of weed.
Wait till it's a good one.
We stayed 2 or 3 days and finally picked us out a load, which was some top-notch weed. Anyway.
What is, as a connoisseur, and this was what year-ish?
That would have been about 1990, 91.
So top-notch coming out of Mexico, was that super compressed or not so compressed still?
Oh no, it was compressed, and the bales were tight, maybe 70 pound, 75 pound bales.
So what makes it higher quality?
How I gauge personally?
Yeah, when you're looking at a bale.
When you open the doors of a tractor trailer truck,
What it smelled like?
and you couldn't stand within 20 feet of it, that's good fucking shit. That was my gauge.
Okay.
I didn't have to,
How far you have to stand back?
I didn't,
How terpy is it? I wish more people actually gauged it by that.
I didn't have to have a chemist tell me what it was worth.
Yeah, there's a...
If it had no mold and you couldn't crack open a bale without coughing, that's good shit.
I didn't know where the bar was. So y'all got
That's a layman's term, by the way.
yeah. We call it, you know, if it'll make you sneeze. Sometimes, like if it's terpy enough, it'll make you sneeze. We use the term.
So I can tell you this: we loaded the DEA plane to fly back to Miami or Fort Lauderdale, and Jay, he was out of work for a couple of days because of his sinuses. He had to take heavy medication because of that shit was in the DEA plane. It was that bad.
Also, and you've probably been there too, Clint. I've definitely been in like a room this size, full of super sacks full of weed, and you're in there for like 20 minutes and you start getting a headache.
Yes.
And it's like terpenes, maybe something else, whatever it's putting off is probably not good for you.
Well, it's just
Quantities like that.
yeah, it's kind of like anything else. Anytime there's like smells that are so intense that you're just naturally like, I need to get away from it. Like, dude, when they're paving asphalt, nobody on earth likes to be around that. Like, you're just naturally gonna try and get away from that. Same thing goes if you're in like a room that is freshly chopped or just fully ripe without the circulation being on, it's just kind of been the air for a minute. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I'll start sneezing. My eyes will get red. You know.
Yeah, especially the sensitive people.
Yeah, you know, you spend enough time around it. I mean, even some people, they'll say that they've, you know, once you can reach a point that like, then all of a sudden you're gonna start having more adverse reactions after being around it your whole life.
I'm glad you survived that moment.
I'm glad he survived all these crazy moments. My goodness. I mean, there's historically and statistically, there's not a lot of people that mess with the cartel and walk away from it, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, he got to see regime change within the cartels and all the different cartels in between Colombian and Bolivia. Was Bolivia basically run by Colombian though?
No, I mean they were a source country as Peru. You know, Colombia. Look, they grew a little bit of coca leaf, not.
They just exported the regions. Right?
Yeah, it was all from the
Peruvian.
The eastern brow of the Andes Mountains in Bolivia and Peru.
Yeah. So after, so you came to Memphis.
Oh, the assassins. So, again, at that time, Harry and I did not know each other. He came in from Caracas. I came in from Bolivia. I got sent on a controlled delivery to New York. I was not in Memphis when Harry got there. I was on my way back from New York. And this is going to play into at the end of the story. I think we delivered 350 kilos, I did, on that delivery in New York. I was on my way back from New York back to Memphis. There's another controlled delivery that was seized by Shelby County. Mine was seized by Shelby County on the interstate, interdiction squad. I was coming back, another load of about 300 kilos was seized by Shelby County, and Harry was on his way to New York on a controlled delivery for that 300 kilos. So Harry actually met my wife before I ever met him. We were both in temporary housing. Understand, he's coming in from Caracas, I'm coming in from Bolivia. So basically by proxy, we were made partners. Get a call one night, and we're the FNGs, right? I mean, and we gotta do our thing. People gotta learn about us. Just because you're senior agents, when you go to an office, you still gotta make your bones, dude. Nobody's gonna give you, cut you in. Exactly. You still gotta do your thing. And we go out on surveillance one night, and this is like a big Colombian case, and we're hearing all the chatter on the radios about. This is the main guy, this is the main Colombian, this is the man. You know, they're building all this up. And I want to predicate this by saying it's not based on ignorance, it's just based on experience and world knowledge, okay, of the drug world. These are state and local guys, dude. They've not been anywhere other than Memphis, right? So in no way am I speaking derogatory toward them. They just don't know. So we're at this hotel parking lot, we're looking, and they're calling out this main guy coming out of the hotel, and I'm not seeing it. I'm looking at Harry, we're sitting in the car. I'm like, and what am I missing, dude? I don't see this guy. Who are they talking about? Am I that friggin' stupid? I can't, who are they talking about? I'm not seeing him. So we get on the radio and we're like, guy, what's he dressed in? I don't see him. Somebody on the radio says, well, he's the black dude in blue jeans and a white t-shirt. And I'm like, I look at Harry and we both start laughing. And we're like, dude, this ain't no main Colombian guy. He's black. You know me, Clint. I'm in no way prejudiced, racist.
No.
I'm the furthest thing from that.
It's going to have to be a Colombian guy to be the the main Colombian guy.
Yeah, because in South America, in those cultures, a black man, they think more of their pet dog. Colombians, South Americans. This guy's a cutout. They could care less about this guy. He's sent there to Memphis because basically everyone the cartel's dealing with is black. He's black. It's a business decision, right? But he ain't the main guy.
No. He's there on behalf of him.
But he ain't him, right? So we get over all that. And please, in no way am I being derogatory at all. So once we realize that, long story short, we take off that load, we arrest that guy. Ultimately, he cooperates. I'm not going to say his name. Ultimately, he cooperates. Ultimately, his girlfriend carrying his child cooperates. He's locked up. He's not getting out of prison. And the cartel people start making phone calls trying to see him because they want to know who owes this money. So we figure out a way to let them into the federal prison system to be able to visit with him through his girlfriend. And these guys, in Spanish, they were called the Angels of Death. Their only job for that cartel was to find and kidnap and torture and extract money owed to that particular cartel. So we had set up meetings. These guys were coming from New York. And when they showed up, they were actually light-skinned Colombians. And we knew at that time, it was at the Wendy's out in Bartlett, Tennessee. And Harry and I got out of the car and high-fived like, oh, we're in it now, dude. We're in it. This is the real deal thing. This is happening. So we used a separate cooperator from Memphis, who in his own right was an incredible drug dealer. But he cooperated. He knew all the players that owed this group money, which were actually rivals of his. So he was more than happy to give them up. Basically, we coordinated these guys coming in from Queens, New York, to come into Memphis to supposedly kidnap, torture, and collect the money owed for about 750 kilos. 2 of the loads was the one initially 2 years ago I went up to New York on, and the other one was 2 years ago that Harry went up to New York. Both those loads were seized. This was part of this whole that stretched out for all this time frame. So once that showed up, we had some recordings between the girlfriend. We had some recorded jail calls between people in Miami, New York, and our guy that was being held in Millington. We sat down at Harry's kitchen table and started writing the first wire affidavit. I started from present time writing back, and he started from historical times writing forward. We met in the middle sometime around 7 o'clock in the morning. And believe it or not, and it's unheard of in the federal government, anybody in the federal government is going to tell you this, whether it's an agent or the U.S. Attorney's Office. From the time we started writing that wire to the time we flipped the switch, was less than 48 hours. That's unheard of.
That's pretty crazy.
That's unheard of. What's even more unheard of is during that time, the Colombians in New York dropped the phone we wrote for. So then we had to write for a new phone. And here's how we got the new phone. We used the separate cooperator from Memphis. Once the Colombians came to Memphis, they had a trap in the car. They unloaded all their guns. They were ready to go. And by the way, no, I'm sorry. Let me back up.
They had a trap in their car, you said?
Yeah, they're not there yet. I'm sorry. I messed that portion up. I messed that up. They switched phones. We had our cooperator in Memphis call them on the new phone, and they wouldn't answer. What happened was the phone company in New York cut their phone off because it was a clone phone. It was stolen from another number. And the owner of the
original number,
legitimate number, figured it out, and the phone company cut it off, unbeknownst to us. Obviously, we didn't tell the phone company we were, at that time, interested in that phone. So that phone's being approved, it gets cut off. In the meantime, we had initially heard from the first wire, which only lasted like 3 days, that the Colombian assassins in New York had killed a guy and thrown him on the side of the road in Queens. So we called NYPD and said, hey, you need to go to this intersection. There should be a black suitcase and there's gonna be a dead body in it. And there was. Now they're on their way. They're on their way to Memphis. So we're on the right track. They're coming. In the meantime, New York cuts off the phone that we'd been listening to for 3 days. They get to Memphis, and now we're not up on a phone. They're using our cooperator from a completely separate case. They're using him. They're staying at his house. They unloaded guns at his house. These are stone cold assassin killing Colombian people. He's freaking out. So basically, we get with a legitimate cooperator, a business cooperator, which is different from a thug cooperator, and tell them we need a phone. We get a phone number, and we have the one cooperator off a separate case go to the Colombians, who can now not call anybody, not Miami, they can't call Colombia, they can't call New York, they're in the dark. He tells them that he's basically stolen and cloned these numbers. And he'll give them a phone. So he basically gave them a government phone that we were up on. And then we started hearing everything. For about 12 hours, they didn't use it because they were scared. But once they started using it, it was on.
wow.
And we took down the whole, we actually arrested everybody when they were literally going to kidnap one of the drug dealers in Memphis to hold him hostage.
Wow. You said they had a trap in their car where they like kept all their weapons in?
Yeah, it was a hidden compartment within the car that they kept all their weapons in.
What was their choice of weapon?
Oh, it
Tech
was just,
nines?
no, it was just pistols.
Just pistols?
Yeah, it was
Silencers?
just pistols.
Pistols?
No, it
and
was
silencers?
just pistols, dude.
Not even a silencer?
No, nothing that sexy.
Bro, if I'm in a stone cold assassin, I'm rocking like my Tech 9 is for, and especially in the early 90s, my Tech 9, my Mac 10, my Uzi, that would be for when it hits the fan, just
That's all
spray,
movie shit, dude.
spray and pray,
They'll make their own gun.
I mean, so is it Berettas? I mean, what were they rocking, Smith & Wesson?
No, I think they were Glock. Well, it doesn't matter, man. I don't know.
So many.
I mean,
Whatever's available.
I mean, if I was a Colombian assassin, I'm not rocking a clock. I'm gonna have a silver-studded Kimber,
Okay.
45, full size, too, full size,
Extra long.
gold-plated rounds. You know what I'm saying?
If I'm
To
the
make
agent-
it real easy for the government to track you down, by the way.
Yeah.
He's got his name in
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. If I'm a stone cold assassin, I know what to do with my casings. It is not leave them behind. I'll pull the lead out of somebody if I need to. Just kidding. So let's see here. Well, let's venture away from Memphis, so that nobody died, right?
Nope.
Everybody got arrested. Beautiful
Everybody
thing.
got arrested.
That's incredible.
Historic case.
Well, I won't say nobody died.
Okay. Well, somebody died.
So the Colombian who actually did the 2 loads that initially went up, this 650 pound or 650 kilos. He was part of what happened in Memphis. So one of the guys, they found not a main guy. He was a lower Memphian guy. But he worked for one of the main guys they were trying to kidnap. They found his body in the trunk of a car at the MPD impound lot about 6 months before this happened. Because one of the guys they came to kidnap actually killed this guy and stole like 300 kilos from the Colombians. They killed the cutout.
Wow.
So he died, and the guy who had the initial 2 loads that were piggybacked in on a bigger load that I took to New York and that Harry took to New York like a year and a half earlier.
He was the one that ended up in the suitcase.
No, that's a completely different case. Didn't know that guy, never heard of him. He was a different guy. They were hired to do that to. The Colombian that had that partial load, they killed him in Bogota in a grocery store in front of his wife and kids. I think there were 700 shell casings in the grocery store. They made an example out of him.
Goodness gracious.
Nobody died in the other than the guy in the trunk of the car early
Right.
on that we didn't even put in that case till 2 years later. We didn't know he was involved until 2 years later.
Wild.
But he's actually the only one in our case that got killed inside the U.S.
Those are wild days. And then what brought you back to Nashville? Job opportunity to get back towards where you're from?
So there was a lot of gang stuff going on in Jackson, Tennessee. I was in Memphis. A lot of gangs activity going on in Jackson, believe it or not. You kind of snicker at that. It's Jackson, Tennessee. But per capita, there were more gang-related homicides than Chicago, D.C., New York,
Wow.
per capita.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that matters. Yeah. It's not the overall numbers.
So for Tennessee, it's really friggin' bad. So DEA was called in by the district attorney, chief of police, Chief Staples, Dennis Mays, who was the county attorney at the time. We got brought in to help with that. So I was basically assigned from Memphis to Jackson for about 2 years. Jackson gang unit was formed at that time. And we ended up doing nothing but gang cases. And it was a lot. I mean, I think there was over 40 something gang related people at that time arrested in Jackson.
Wow.
And that actually won OCDEF Case of the Year out of the New Orleans division. John Folks was the assistant U.S. attorney on that case, who ultimately became the chief federal judge in Memphis.
What was the
Fine human being. But that precipitated the need for an office being opened in Jackson. And there were 2 guys in Nashville that wanted to go to Jackson. And then you had me in Memphis that wanted to go to Nashville. So I wrote a proposal for an office to be opened in Jackson. And
Let me give these guys a job. I'll take theirs.
and I take theirs. And so I paid for the government didn't pay for my move. I paid for my own move from Memphis to Nashville back home. So the kids would be with grandparents and I was back home.
So, and we'll skip. We'll do the pot cave at the end since we're kind of floating through your career right now. So then you were in Nashville for a while. At this point, you'd been a career law enforcement, TBI, quickly to DEA, been there for a long time, worked in other countries, all around the U.S. Then you eventually walked away from the DEA. Tell us about that.
Are you going to skip Nashville completely?
We'll come back to Nashville.
Okay.
We'll come back to Nashville.
So, yeah. So toward the end, I retired in 2015. I guess it'd been like, I think it was 28 years is what they said. I'd been with DEA. And with DEA, I had great bosses, dude. I had just the best human beings you could, forget being a boss, just the best human beings you could ever imagine on the face of the earth. And a lot of them were my bosses. I've never had but one bad boss in DEA, and he was my last one. And I'm not going to mention names. But yeah, it was bad. I mean, I survived the last couple of years because Harry was the SAC in Atlanta over everybody, which is the godfather to one of my sons. I mean, we're close. I talk to him every week to this day. He ended up retiring, going with Coca-Cola as the number 2 guy in their security. And then we had an interim SAC who was a good man. I'm not going to say he was a bad guy, but he believed in protecting his bosses, not necessarily the troops. I don't want to say he didn't. He did out of convenience. He protected his troops out of convenience, not out of any wherewithal that he should be doing that, if you know what I mean.
They should come.
But ultimately, another one of my best friends became the SAC in Atlanta, so I could have stayed, but I'd already made some assurances that I was leaving. So I retired like 3 years early. But honestly, for me, the straw that, there was a number of things leading up to it, but the straw that broke the camel's back, I was brought into this particular boss's office, along with a representative from the U.S. Attorney's Office out of the Middle District. And at that point in time, I had promoted, which I'd never done in my career because I wanted to get home. You couldn't do that in DEA. You had to transfer every 3 to 5 years if you're going to be in a boss. So I waited to the very end to be a boss where I knew I could retire if they tried to make me transfer, right? Yes, I gained the system.
Yes.
So they brought me in. I was running a group, a tactical diversion squad in Nashville that I was like the first one in the Atlanta division at that time. And I got brought into his office and basically sat down, and I was given the orders that I was to take some of my people to Montgomery County up in Clarksville and start working them undercover, buying pills from, you all know, I mean, hopefully people listening, what Clarksville is, Fort Campbell's in Clarksville, huge military base.
It's military town.
And they wanted me to send my people up there undercover and start making cases on military guys because they were selling a lot of pills, pharmaceutical pills. So I was the group supervisor over tactical diversion. That was our thing, right? And there was a lot of that going on back then. And I was told to go up there and start buying the pharmaceutical dope from the Fort Campbell soldiers and making federal cases. Well, first of all, in Nashville, they would never take a buy case like that from anybody off the street. Didn't happen. So obviously, it was obvious to me they're making an exception because these guys are soldiers. So I protested, and my protest basically was in that initial meeting, I'm not doing that. So as you can imagine, my bosses hit back pretty hard. The U.S. Attorney's Office hit back pretty hard. Well, you will do it. You work for me, you're going to do what I'm saying. And me being me, I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. So you got to understand, you remember the war's going on then, right? I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
that's what's happening. I said, so let me get this straight. We as a society and as a government, we're sending these guys off to war. And through medical advances, we can actually keep them alive. Missing limbs, all 4 limbs in some cases, but multiple limbs, single limbs. They're in a great deal of agony and pain. But us being the federal government, it's cheaper to medicate them than to actually fix them. So now they're hooked on pain medication. And then the bureaucracy of our government says, well, you're abusing the system. We're going to cut you off of pain meds.
Yep.
They're already addicted.
Yep.
What choice do those guys have?
Yep.
They have to go to the street to get their dope, man.
Yep.
And now you're wanting me to go put those people in federal
The sol-
prison when we friggin' started that chain? No, that's not what I hired to do, dude. I'm not doing that. I will not do that.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that.
And that was like it for me. I was done. I was just done. I couldn't do that.
No.
I'm not gonna do that. It's not right.
No, it's not the right thing to do. And they probably found somebody to do it anyway.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Well, no, they didn't.
Well,
Nobody.
good. Good. That's a good thing. All right, let's circle back to Nashville, because Nashville's where the fun happened. I mean, Memphis and the cocaine cowboys and all that is a lot of fun, but the Nashville stuff is fun. So so we've got the big story, the Memphis story, cocaine in Colombia. But to me, one of my favorite stories for a long time, probably for 20 years, has been the Tennessee pot cave, and just the kind of spectacular story behind it, because it's not just an open shut case. It has lived to this day with unanswered questions as to who was operating it, how all this went down, where's it at now, and Joey was there for it. So Joey it was when you were in Nashville, right? Mm-hmm. In Nashville, working for the DEA. Tell us that story. How did from the first phone call, how did that happen?
Well, I mean, when I first heard about the Tennessee pot cave, didn't know it was a cave. It's probably a year, 18 months before we started hearing about this grow that supposedly was going on in Trousdale County. We started hearing it from the drug task force up there. We had a meeting, actually in Sumner County. Everybody came and had lunch, and they pitched the case, and it was really in its infancy. And back in those days, I mean, look, I was interested. I had no idea, obviously, it was that big. Good friend of mine, it was his case. He pitched it, sound great, but there was so much going on with meth labs. I mean, we were just inundated at the time. We were doing 4, 5, 6 a week.
Goodness.
And I just couldn't devote the time. In retrospect, should I have? Yes, absolutely. I wish I would have. But I heard about it way back when, but they just didn't really, all they had is like smoke, right?
They didn't have a lot to sell people on, right?
No, but look, they were doing their due diligence. They were investigating the hell out of it, dude. And obviously it was there, right? At the end of the day, that was probably my bad judgment by not putting more time, 2 years in advance on it, or 18 months in advance on it. So I heard about it long before it ever happened. I mean, they didn't even know it was a cave. Nobody knew it was a cave, right? So fast forward till they actually got a break in the case.
And what was the break in the case?
Just well, lucky or unlucky, depending on which side of the law you sit on. So, dude that was in charge of it, the manager, he ran crews in and out. Usually the crews, I think, were 2 to 3 weeks at a time. They flew them in from Arizona or Texas, I believe. Now look, I've not read this in years. I'm basically going off memory. So if I'm mistaken,
it ain't gonna be 100%. We'll take it.
This is based off my memory. Dude would bring these people in. They'd hood them, put them in a van, blacked out. They'd drive them from Nashville Airport to this location. They'd pull in, march them in, take the blindfolds off, and they would work for 3 weeks in a cave.
Wow.
How it was actually, the break was, and again, I've always said this throughout my career, I'd rather be lucky than good any fucking day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Dude that was the manager got caught, it may have been in Carthage, got arrested for DUI. He started missing the old lady, he'd been drinking, he goes out to use a payphone because there was no phones that you could use. There was no contact once you got to that location, according to witnesses or cooperators after the fact. So he's about half in the bag, calls this old lady, gets pulled over for a DUI, tries to get out of the DUI and goes, "If I got something for you," and he friggin' starts telling the story.
He snitches over a DUI.
And as a matter of fact, dude's flying into the Nashville airport in about 2 days.
That same guy?
No, the main guy.
Oh.
Well, he's telling you that.
And he gives up the main guy. And they go to the airport and grab the main guy.
The quote unquote.
And I've not heard any of this. I'm telling you this after the fact.
Right, yeah.
Based on what my recollection
They get the main guy before they hit the house?
100%.
Yeah. I forget the name he used. So the interesting part about this main guy, who's out of Florida, right? I believe that's what that's what the paperwork says, I think. An engineer, definitely. But the name that he gave the government, they took it. He served his time, but it is well thought and for good reason that he actually served his time under an alias, and the government never really knew who he was.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I do believe that. I don't think we know to this day who he actually was.
Yeah, and there was a co-conspirator as well, right? There was another man that was up that ladder as well that
Yes.
never actually.
Yeah, and I think there was also multiple locations throughout the country, not just this one.
So y'all got him.
No, y'all didn't. I don't know at this point. DEA has not heard any of this. We get the call, hey, we get told what I just told you.
Mm-hmm.
We arrest this guy at the airport. We've got this. Dude, it's freaking huge. There's a cave under this house. You need to come. Now understand, the guy who was the case agent on this was a really good friend of mine. Really good friend of mine. Sarge, well, today he still runs the drug task force up there. One of the best cops I've ever met. One of the best investigators I've ever met. He said, "Hey, dude, you need to come. This is the real freaking deal, man." And so I tell my boss, we all load up, we haul ass to Trousdale County, to the cave, and we go up there. And
Drive up the heated driveway.
yeah, it was a heated driveway. And
to the mansion that was still there.
It wasn't a mansion, dude. It was just an A-frame. It's a nice house.
It was a nice house. I'd call it a mansion. For people like myself, it was a mansion. It was a nice new house sitting on top of the hill.
Yeah. So I get out of the car. Sarge comes up, dude, you ain't gonna believe this shit. You just ain't even gonna believe it. So he walks me in, and I've seen all the videos online. A lot of that's all horse shit. So it wasn't in the closet. The false door was not in the closet. That's all BS. It was in the garage. It was like a underneath like outlet, underneath the steps going into the house. There was no friggin' closet.
No, and so if you watch the YouTube video, they show it. They show it where the bomb door was.
Yeah, that's not a closet.
Yeah, it's
it
not
was
a
just
closet.
like
It's right there. Yeah.
Now look, it was high tech, and I go down there, and it's like a poured concrete friggin' ramp, and I walk in there, and I'm like in awe, dude. This is literally something out of like James Bond. I've never seen anything like this, and this would be a once-in-a-lifetime career case. So at that point, I'm all in, dude. I'm like, oh God, I wish I'd have listened to you 18 months ago. But I'm like all in on this now. And so as we start to walk in, I stop. I'm like, wait a minute. This whole place is lit up. Are y'all like, have y'all turned the electricity off on this yet? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, how about the phone lines? Have you shut the phone lines down? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, everybody needs to get out of here right now. Obviously, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like
he could be watching us right now. He could have this whole place rigged with dynamite and kill us all.
You go back to 20 years ago in your,
Yeah.
in your law enforcement
We need to
experience where a toothless hillbilly in the middle of the woods dynamited some weed plants, and now you're in the middle of a very well engineered. That's the coolest thing to me about the pot cave is that it's not like a hillbilly put some pot plants in a cave and ran some line.
No, it was
The
high tech,
state
dude.
and the local power company's engineers never were able to figure out how they even got the power. So not only was it just
No, I was
beautifully-
there that day watching them, and they came back. They were telling us, look, man, we don't know where they're tapped in. We can't
But they
find it.
knew that they were stealing power from the local nuclear power plant, untapped. So go ahead. So you tell everybody to get out of there.
Yeah, we need to back out. Let's get the electricity off. Turn the phones off. We need to go to generators because he could actually be watching us and detonate and just bury us all. So, look, I'm not sure exactly what I don't know if we went to generators or not. I'm not sure how that happened or how they checked. I know the phone lines were turned off. But anyway, we went back in the cave and looked around. It was unbelievable. And the initial guy that was arrested said they harvested, I believe, 3 times a year.
Yeah, you can get 3 off easy.
So that's 3 different, they brought a crew in to harvest and plant, crew in to harvest and plant, crew in to harvest and plant. So he was doing like 3 crews a year. I don't know what anybody told the news. I understand that guy at some point gave an interview. I think he was lying his ass off. I think there was a whole lot more to it. If they did it 3 times a year, it would be well beyond $1.5 million he claimed. Well beyond that. Well beyond it, even after expenses. But we went in, looked at everything. We actually crawled over 2 walls and found the escape hatch where it had the hydraulic jack under the boulder that they could escape through. That was not easily found, by the way.
I bet not.
And I'm sorry. That's always been a regret that I truly believe federal law enforcement should have been more involved in that case than they were, because that case went all over the country.
But it was Trousdale County that kind of ran with it?
Yeah, and I'm not, look, and Sarge was a good friend of mine. Still is a very, very good friend of mine. And there were some things that occurred the day of. I think that there was DEA personnel that actually told the Sarge and the local task force some untruths, or for the benefit of the doubt, half-truths as to what was going on. At some point, I mean, I believe that what I had said, you got to understand, between federal, state, and local governments, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of collaboration, there is. Most of that's based off of friendships and knowledge of other cops and how they work and your history with those cops. And the person who initially, I think, told some half-truths or out and out lied, had those relationships and he was believed. That was not the case, at least on the federal side. And let me predicate this statement by saying this. As evidenced by the initial interview, I was a state and local long before I was a Fed. I know how I was treated as a state and local. I made sure I never, as a federal agent, treated those guys and looked down on those guys the way I was treated and looked down on. Never did it. Didn't happen with me. Hate me, love me, there ain't nobody that's ever going to say that
No, it should be that
against me. So with that being said, understand that the federal government task force, when they have state and locals in their task force are fed federal money. When I say federal money, that's based off seizures, right? So their departments, not just narcotics, but their whole departments get money from those assets, from those federal assets, which could be a ton of money depending on which task force you're with. Now, the local task forces, which are not assigned to DEA, and those task forces, they're on their own. Many of them are self-funded, which I am not a proponent of at all. I think that leads to some very unsavory actions.
Yes.
In no way am I saying this about this case.
Right.
In no way am I saying that about this case. I'm saying in general,
board, yeah.
across the board. So basically first of all, this was the position of the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time, and DEA's, quite frankly. You don't split cases. If you bring a case federally, we will take all asset seizures and the criminal case at the same time. You can't do one without the other. You can't litigate both. It leads, you can't. You just can't do that. And usually all the asset stuff should be done after the criminal case. So you just can't separate the cases. So I agree with that concept. So basically my position and my boss's position was, hey, we'll adopt the case federally, but you can't split assets, right, from the criminal case.
Once feds take over, it's feds.
But however, everything that you've seized up to this point is yours. We don't care. You can actually forfeit it federal. We're not taking any piece of that whatsoever. But anything from this point forward will have to be shared with the task forces, our other state and local partners, right?
But you can find YouTube videos of them having these types of arguments on the side of the road on I-40.
Well, that was somewhere in the translation, it was lost in the bureaucracy of everything. And so when Sarge and them started going to other parts of the country, I was not a part of that. okay? Neither, to my knowledge, was DEA Nashville part of that. But this is normally how that stuff happens. In general, I'm not even talking about this case. I'm talking about in general. This is the way it happens. Hey, where you from? What do you got? You know, I'm Joey Mundy. I'm with the local task force, and we did this, we did that, we did this, we seized this much, we found safety deposit boxes here, we know he owns property here, we are down in Florida, we know he's got stuff here, that's the reason we're here, we need to get search warrants for all this. Well, in order to do that, they've got to go through DEA in Florida, in Louisiana. Well, what do you think DEA Florida and Louisiana is going to do? They're going to pick up the phone, they're going to call DEA Nashville where it originated and say, what do you know about this Joey Mundy that's got this case, that's doing this? We're not prosecuting, we're not having anything to do with it. So that's where it all falls to shit, dude. Unbeknownst to the Indians working the case, that's just the government bureaucracy. It sucks, dude. It does suck. And it almost cost me and Sarge our friendship. And honestly, we didn't speak for a couple of years. And believe me, I had nothing against him, and I don't believe he had anything against me. It's just the way the situation and the bureaucrats worked it all out, right?
Yep.
And it shouldn't be that way.
No.
I don't even know if that's changed since I've left. I doubt it.
I don't think it has, because there's still pretty regularly, I mean, I would say at least every 5 years, roadside incidents of the drug task force out on I-40, you know, west of town, where they have their interdiction set up all the time, and the county, and them trying to, they pull over the same person because they can tell there's something good there, and then they're fighting on the road about whose it is, and it ends up in court, and you know it's been a mess over the years.
And
because it's who's there first, you know, and it'll remain that way until something changes, because
you can't look at stuff parochial like that. You just can't.
No.
You've got to look at the big picture type. Look, I've always said, even the classes I teach, anybody that's ever been to any one of my classes, I've been a firm believer, and have always taught the guys that work for me or that I work with, or the younger guys coming up, as long as you don't care who gets credit, you will always be successful.
That's true.
But the first person on your team that decides they need credit, you're doomed to fail.
Yep.
Eventually, everything's going to implode.
Yep.
And I've never not seen it happen that way. In 30 some odd plus years, I've never not seen that happen just exactly the way I said.
It's and as a cannabis guy, circling back, it's like, you know, a big part of, just before we go, a big part of cannabis and roadside seizures and all this stuff is, you know, the smell, and anything, you know, if they can go from there. One of the things that's, I don't know if you know about this, but in the past year, we had a federal case, or it went to federal court in Memphis. Have you heard about this, the Green case? I forget the guy's first name, last name Green. And it was all about smell and what could happen after that. And for the first time, the canine officer said that his dog couldn't tell the difference, which we all knew that. But then at the same time, the officer said that he couldn't tell the difference. And so what it's done is it's kind of sent a little shockwave through.
Well, you can't tell the difference.
well, especially when those laws and stuff were written, you know, maybe in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when it was just marijuana. But as soon as you say we're taking hemp off the controlled substance, well, now all of a sudden it smells the exact same. If you want to smoke a CBD joint, it can smell the same as that. I mean, I did that through breeding. I would take CBD with THC to get the THC flavor into CBD. It's the exact same. So now in which it hasn't set true legal precedence in that it hadn't been used again in court, which Joey Fuson's working on trying to get that there. But now there's more to it than that, and there's and there's so much that comes into it. You have to be truthful. You can't have things in open view, right? So now, if you had a bag of cannabis sitting there, that would be, now they have reason to search. But if you're not lying to them, you don't have it sitting out in the open, you check all these boxes, then it really falls down to officer discretion. But for me as a cannabis person, and just knowing how many people get put into the system for minuscule amounts, they're not a dealer, they're not affecting their community, they just smoke a little bit at night. This forfeiture and the change in the landscape, what does Joey Mundy and ex-DEA, you've seen all this, you've fought it, you know what I mean, you're a big part of the war on drugs. But at the same time, we've had plenty of conversations about how you understand the difference between cannabis and all the other hard drugs. Where do you see us as a culture, as Tennesseans, going in the next 5, 10 years? Where do you see this going?
It's a pretty freaking broad question.
Well, where do you see cannabis, especially as someone in law enforcement, and as things are starting to change, and we've got
So when I left, I still have, my best friends are still agents, former agents, and when I retired early, and initially I didn't go to the dark side, so to speak. I worked for pharmaceutical companies, Mylan, Viatris, Pfizer. There was a lot of stuff I did in between where I'm at right now with Litson. And this is a personal opinion, okay? Has nothing to do with the federal government, DEA, any kind of scheduling, any of that, right? I would tell you, as I said on the law enforcement side, I say the same thing on the other side, okay? On the civilian side, I would say, as long as there's laws on the book that marijuana is illegal, we are obligated as agents and as law enforcement to enforce that law. If you don't fucking like that law, then the bureaucrats need to change that fucking law.
I'm working on it.
So don't begrudge law enforcement for enforcing the law, okay? Whether they believe in it or not, it's irrelevant. It's still the law.
Yeah.
Change the friggin' law where they don't have to enforce it, because they swear an oath, just as I did, and I had plenty of friends and acquaintances die because of that. So if you don't think I'm gonna enforce it, or I did enforce it, you're sorely mistaken. I will. To the best of my ability, I will absolutely do it. Now, did I believe in it? That's a different question, okay? I've had the question come up, do you think it's a gateway drug? Well, you've got to separate that question into time frame, okay? So, do I think it's a gateway drug into cocaine, meth, heroin, fentanyl, pills, a whole other thing? On a physiological basis, no, I do not. By any means, does it make you more prone to cocaine and heroin by smoking weed? Do I believe that? 100% absolutely not. You're never gonna make me believe that.
They actually removed it from the DARE program because of that.
Now, if you want to say, is it a gateway drug into those things mentally, socially? 100% it is. At least it was when I was growing up. That's the reason I initially got in law enforcement. And I can explain it this way. because it was so frowned upon and so illegal back in the 80s and 90s. The only way you can make it and step up to these other drugs is to be in that group of people. So it was actually polydrug. The guys who had weed had cocaine, they had mescaline, they had heroin, they had meth. Is it a gateway drug there? 100% it is.
Yeah, just like fries are a gateway to a milkshake.
100% it is.
Because it's there.
But now, physiologically, no, it's absolutely not. You're not going to smoke weed because you want to do cocaine, or you're not going to do cocaine because you smoke weed. Do I believe that? You're never going to convince me of that, dude. I've lived it for over 30 years.
Same.
Not happening.
Same.
Okay.
You give me four bourbon talls though, and I might do another drug.
But weed doesn't do it like that. Weed does not.
Does not affect your
The
ability
human,
to make that
no,
judgment
that's
at all.
completely different other subject matter. But weed does not open those doors,
No.
in my belief. So
My question is as we as a society though have cannabis as a whole is more accepted, I think there is less of that, especially, and there's good stats to go with it that says like states that have gone rec, how does that change their black market? And it does change it quite a bit. I mean, it still exists, right, for cannabis, it still exists.
of course it does.
But overall, as there's more and more cannabis in legal markets, it really takes it out of the hands of those guys that have all those drugs. So the same guys that, my friends, and I know there's like, there's been people I've met through the years that do sell all those drugs. But the people that I've known in the cannabis world, because cannabis has kind of turned into its own thing in that it's not looked at the same way a lot of the other hard drugs, or as hard drugs are, they just do cannabis. Like you don't necessarily these days, and I haven't been to a cannabis dealer in a long time, but when I did, the cannabis dealer didn't have the litany of things. They just had cannabis. Am I wrong?
That's how we grew up.
So in
Well, if
your
they're smart, they shouldn't.
right.
Why would you risk everything?
I agree, but I think that there's
for those drugs though. I bet if we were, we probably could have.
yeah, if we were but I think there's more of that than more people just with cannabis and in California sober type stuff than there is that these days. I completely agree with you because like I was in church 3 days a week, but what got me in trouble was hanging out with the kids that smoked weed, and I completely condone anyone smoking weed at an early age. At the same time, it taught me a lot. You know what I mean?
Wait, you condone.
Yeah, I do not support anyone to.
So you don't condone.
I don't condone. Yeah, sorry.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
We're fixing to go off the rails here, dude.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
I didn't expect that.
Nobody should be on any drug. Really, even males after 18, and that's why we have laws that say 21. But even most people in the healthcare world would say that males really shouldn't have access. And there's plenty of good research that shows males maybe shouldn't have access to cannabis until they're in their mid-20s. But where do you see? Where do you see like a change? I know law enforcement's always going to enforce law, but we're inching closer and closer, especially as Tennessee. We're fully surrounded by states with medical now.
Let me ask you this question, and you'll know exactly where I fall. When's the last person you heard that overdosed and died off of weed?
Oh man, never.
So, as law enforcement, what laws am I going to enforce?
Yeah.
I'm going to go toward cocaine that probably contains fentanyl now.
Almost not 100%. Yeah.
Pills, which probably going to contain fentanyl now.
Yep.
Heroin, which will absolutely contain fentanyl now. Look, law enforcement's got plenty to worry about other than recreational smoking of weed or smoking of weed for medicinal purposes.
Yeah, the
right?
the only thing that ever hurt anybody has to do with cannabis is really the black market, and that is when you're
Well, that was the other thing you were talking about. Like, and look, I don't have access to secret Northorn, and I ain't got any access to any of that stuff anymore. I've lost all my ability to have access to that. But here's my thing. There's no way in hell that you're ever going to convince me that whether it's cannabis, whether it's marijuana or weed, any of that stuff, if you think for 1 second the black market's going to go away because it's approved and it's legal, you're smoking way too much dope, dude. Because I'm telling you right now, the illegal market's always going to be there.
Oh, 100%.
If you think they're not, wait, am I going to pay tax? If I want to pay 20% taxes or I don't have to pay taxes, guess what I'm doing? If you're a criminal, you're a fucking criminal, dude.
Same reason why we got moonshine today, right? Yeah, yes.
And if you think the legal people, if you think they're ever going to cut into the illegal market, you're also sorely mistaken, because them fuckers don't mind killing you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
And if you actually were cutting into their profit,
no, they're going to let you know. They're going to let
you
you
will
know.
100% know.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends.
That's a self-correcting problem.
and people I know, and that will, regardless. I mean, because when you have legalization, it truly, generally speaking, in some states it's a little bit different legal framework, but it doesn't just give you the right to grow as much cannabis as you want. You have to fall under still a regulated state program. It's not willy-nilly. So it's not what people really think of and want. If you can,
But the illegal side of that doesn't.
oh, that's what I'm getting
care
to.
about
Is
all
I
that.
got friends. They're going to grow cannabis in their basement. Number one, because they love to grow cannabis. That's it. And they're going to grow cannabis in their basement, and they don't even care if they got a market to sell it to, because they enjoy growing cannabis. It's just like the moonshiners. There's a percentage that it doesn't matter what the law says. They're going to do what they love to do because that's what they love to do. And we're not going to change that with any law we create on the books. I can't create a law that says you can grow as much cannabis as you ever want to, wherever you want to, at any time. We're not living in that world. I doubt we'll ever see a world like that, because government's always going to have its control. And when it's something like this, that our government, especially in Tennessee, I mean, they did it with hemp. They tax it like it's a sin tax, you know, and so we're going to continue to see sin taxes attached to alcohol. Alcohol's got its sin tax. Gambling has its sin tax. Everything's got what we call a sin tax in our state, and eventually cannabis will get to that point where it's just considered once again a sin tax in our state, and law enforcement will have parameters that it has to follow in, kind of like hemp does right now, where it's got to be in its original packaging. You need to have the receipt with it. If it's in your car, it needs to be unopened and untampered with. But once we get to that point, the changes it can affect on society are pretty positive, you know. And you still have black market. You're always going to have illicit, but the positive changes that it can create in society, like the drug testing bill that I tried to run in regards to just hemp THC being in your system, and not putting people into the system and getting, you know, I've had friends that have been 1129'd and failed because of a cannabis test because they smoked one time in 30 days and had to do a year in jail, and failed again and, you know, 3 years in jail. And so to stop that vicious cycle, and that I consider to be somewhat predatory, coming from Rutherford County, it's changed since 2018, but was somewhat predatory if you were a cannabis person at all. And that, like, that's how they help, and that's how law enforcement funds itself a lot, is through drug forfeiture and things like that. But when it just affects small civilians that are, you know, no different than the guy drinking a beer at night, you know, he's not actively trying to hurt anyone, or it's just like you said, nobody's overdosing on cannabis. Sure, people might do dumb things on cannabis, but the reality is most people aren't doing dumb things on cannabis when they're sitting in their house. The worst thing that they're doing is going to the fridge and getting more ice cream. which I'm gonna do tonight. I also made some strawberry juice. You know, they're like, oh, well, you're not productive. Well, I took strawberries yesterday, pureed them in a slow juicer, reduced them down, and created my own strawberry syrup to put on my ice cream. So I don't know.
You got too much time on your hands.
Oh, it's all for fun, man. It's all about enjoying life, right? And so food is one of the ways to do it. You enjoy a nice beer, I enjoy a nice cannabis, and neither one of us are, wrong for doing so. I just want it to be, I just want us to be on an even playing field, Hopefully we can have Joey back, y'all. I hope y'all enjoy it. Joey is a wonderful man. A lot of people, like Joey said, look down on law enforcement. Joey got into it because he saw his friends being negatively affected in school, and created a great career where he was able to, I believe, minus the ERAD days, he did a lot of good things in the state, and kept a lot of hard drugs off the streets in the U.S. as a whole. So I'm very thankful to know Mr. Joey Mundy. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
What's up, guys? This episode is sponsored by BBXLG, a brand focused on quality and consistency, doing the right things the right way. They've been strong supporters of the culture and what we've been building here at Joint Efforts. If you're tapped into the community, you've probably already seen their work. And if not, now's the time to get familiar. If you're local, check out the Green Note Market here in Nashville, happening every Monday at Vinyl Lounge. It's a great place to connect with vendors, relax, and hang out with the culture and community that you love. BBXLG is always going to be in the mix with that. We super appreciate BBXLG for backing the show. Tap in, hit the link in the bio, get to their Instagram, their website, and all that good stuff. Thank you, guys.